What's happening, everyone? Happy Monday. I hope you guys had a great Christmas celebration with your friends and family as much as possible, obviously, in these times. That's it. Last Monday of 2020. Been a crazy year. A lot of ups and downs for everyone. Unfortunately, sports and boxing weren't excluded from everything that happened. And I want to start today with something that doesn't have to do with a specific event or that has to do with boxing from a technical standpoint of view, but with something that Anthony Joshua did. He made a substantial donation to amateur boxing clubs in England following the exclusion of amateur boxing from a £300 million emergency relief package that was passed by the English government. And I just want to talk about why that is, why I consider amateur boxing not being included in such a package a huge slap in the face for the sport of boxing and for fighters all across the world, not just England. Because if something like that were to happen in America, if the American government or any big European government were to releases a relief package like such, boxing wouldn't be included in those either. And I'm not talking about professional boxing, I'm talking about amateur boxing. And the reason for this is that amateur boxing is obviously not as popular as professional boxing. It doesn't have the same viewership, but the truth is that amateur boxing is the foundation of the sport. And you know, there's thousands upon thousands of people all over the world that might be coaches, fighters that work just as hard as the professionals day in and day out to achieve their dreams, to win a world championship, to better the lives of their families, that are excluded from something like this. And just to put things into perspective, right? In this relief package, 300 million, badminton received £2 million, right? Badminton has given England a total of 2 bronze medals and 1 silver medals in Olympic Games throughout the history. Great Britain has had 59 Olympic medalists in boxing, including 18 gold medals, 16 silver medals, and 25 bronze medals. And 40% of England's amateur boxing clubs come from the 20% most segregated neighborhoods of the country. Now, this last statistic, although being for England specific, is the same all around the world. Boxing clubs are normally the best boxing clubs, the boxing clubs with the most history tend to be in the poorest neighborhoods. And the impact that boxing clubs have on the youth, the amount of kids that boxing has gotten off the street. I mean, countless examples of huge stars such as Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather, Roberto Duran. All these guys came up through the amateur system. Anthony Joshua and made it to the top of the professionals. And that's why this relief and boxing being excluded is one of the reasons why I always say that every boxer deserves every dime they ever make. Because no one cares about them. Absolutely no one cares about these fighters until they are world champions. And that's something that needs to change, because it also affects the actual level of the sport. If you go on to BoxRec and you see, each weight class, every year there's more active fighters. There's more and more, right? I mean, 5-6 years ago, it was between 1,000 and 1,500. Now it's between 1,300 and 2,000, 2,500 fighters per weight class. And the reason why only the top 25, top 30 are really any good, or could be considered have potentially to be elite, is because the amateur system is terrible in most parts of the world. So these guys, they have a few amateur fights, they become of age and they turn professional because they'd rather get paid to fight, to take a beating, than continue to grow as amateurs. This wouldn't happen if amateur boxing had more financial aid, if amateur boxing as a sport was more supported by the government, right? We wouldn't see the mismatches we do today. We would see the bar of the sport in general being raised by quite a few levels. So I want to just give a huge shout out to Anthony Joshua for remembering where he came from and for helping out these boxing clubs that really need it, because they were forced to shut down again in England. And yeah, we had some fights this weekend. PBC, David Morrell Jr. from Cuba having his 4th pro fight. Then we had James Kirkland reappear. I didn't even know he was still fight. I didn't know he fought again since the Canelo fight. Couple of things I learned about that on that card. Number one, and most importantly, James Kirkland needs to retire. He should never put on a pair of boxing gloves again for his own safety. And Morrell Jr. is an elite talent. He is, Gavronsky actually fought a friend of mine in Chicago last year, stopped him. So I was interested to see what Morrell brings to the table here, because Gavronsky is he's a pretty straightforward guy. If you look at his record, he beats most of his opponents and lost the 4 times he stepped up, and got knocked out every time he fought elite up-and-coming prospects such as Jesse Hart and now Morrell Jr. He has great feet, very good build for the 168, 6'1", long arms. You can see he has tremendous power. He fights a bit different than most Cubans though. He's not as defensive and in his shell as most guys. He comes out pretty fast and immediately wants to trade. He has great control of distance. You could see, especially in his first knockdown, right? Slipping. He slipped that right hand, came back with his own, dropped him with a 3-punch combination, left hand, right hook, left hand, keeping his distance perfect, especially with those 2 left hands, right? He slipped, stayed in place, and then both of those left hands he connected at the right range to fully deliver the power and drop him. The only criticism I have, and that's only because, you probably wouldn't have seen it if he would have fought lesser opposition. At the end of the day, Gavronsky is, it's a tough test for a 4th professional fight, is that he does get hit a little bit too much. He stays in the pocket a bit long. He got hit with a few hands, but he didn't have, Gavronsky was immediately intimidated by the power, so the shots didn't really bother Morrell too much, but it wasn't like he first saw or took his time to see if Gavronsky had any power to begin with. He just immediately went to trade and immediately, gave some, got some in return. And I would like him to just relax a little bit and pick his shots a bit more. Start a little bit slower. And I mean, especially because this was a 10-round fight. You know, if you start fast like that against a guy who's closer to your level or on your level, and you don't get him out there quicker, all of a sudden you have 3-4 good rounds like that, but then you still have 6 left to go. So that's my only issue with a guy being moved that quickly and getting a belt like he has. You know, he's not really there. He's not ready for. I mean, he's the WA interim champion, right? So, is he really ready to fight the WBA regular champion, which is Canelo Alvarez? No, you would never put him in there with him, right? You would never put him in there with any one of these guys, Billy Joe, Caleb Plant, Benavidez. He's not ready for any of them, right? So that's also a problem. You know, the amount of belts that there are in boxing. They give a belt to a kid in his 3rd fight who just is a phenomenal prospect, and now he kind of has to fight world champions or top 10 guys in and out, like day in and day out, because he has a belt, even though it's not a regular belt, even though it's not a legitimate world title belt. He's now high in the rankings, and he has to fight top guys, so he doesn't have the time to develop. I think Lomachenko, you have similar cases like that with Lomachenko, who also got a belt in his 3rd fight, but Lomachenko was a bit of a different case. And then you also have Inoue, but Inoue again, they were truly ready for it. They were handed the chances because they really were ready to fight. After winning the belt, continue to fight elite opposition, right? And we've seen what they've all done. So another great guy in the mix. 168 is panning out to be super exciting for 2021. There's some very, very good matchups. I think what everyone wants to see is Benavidez Plant or Benavidez Canelo, and Billy Joe against Andrade. I personally think, everyone is calling out Canelo. I believe that everyone needs to chill and fight each other before they fight Canelo. I think that, Canelo obviously is the $10 million fight that everyone wants. But I believe they need to fight each other. I think Benavidez needs to fight Plant, needs to get a belt. And then with that belt and that experience that comes with fighting a guy, especially Plant, who also has great defense, right? It's a good fight for anyone at 168 to fight Plant, because he doesn't move his feet that much. He stays in the pocket. He has great upper body movement, but he's a longer guy than Canelo. So it's a great fight. If you beat Plant, that makes you sharp and puts you in a great position to fight Canelo Alvarez. Same with Billy Joe and Andrade. Those are very elusive boxers. They're technically very sound, and I think that anyone who can get past these 4 guys are in a great spot to fight Canelo, not just from a leverage and negotiating perspective because they hold a belt or because they just come off a big win, but also from an experience perspective. I think I said that last week. Canelo's edge and experience is just too big over the other guys at the weight, and although experience isn't everything, I think the gap is too big, and Canelo brings the skills along with it. So yeah, I'm excited for the 168 division. Next up, I hope we do get to see some great fights, and I hope we get to see one of those 4 guys fight Canelo in September. Canelo's supposed to fight, I think, Yildirim in his next fight. It's WC mandatory. I think he'll make quick work of that. I think Yildirim is a very tough guy, but very straight, come forward, suits Canelo perfect, just like it did with Chris Eubank. Chris Eubank finished him off 3 rounds. And then, yeah, the other weight class that really flourished in 2020 was 135, right? We have a lot of up-and-coming guys, emerging superstars. Shakur Stevenson, who just, who's one of the few guys who really worked through the pandemic, fought a couple times, put on a couple of great performances, moved up in weight. He's now, 130. Got some competition in with Chris Colbert, who also, who proved to be an elite prospect. And then at 135, we had Lopez Lomachenko, which was in my opinion, that fight was the best thing that could happen to boxing in this year, because it showed that, it showed that there are fighters out there that are willing to take big risks for smaller paychecks, and that is something that's great for the sport, because if it wasn't for that, then, if they wouldn't have set the tone, then we might not have seen any big fights during this pandemic, right? I'm very excited to see what happens in that division. We have right now, next week we have Campbell and Garcia, and I'm gonna get more into depth of that. But the 135-pound weight division is definitely, along with the 168-pound division, in my opinion, the most attractive one in 2021. I think there's some great matchups to be made, and I think those matchups, they're not going to be as hard to make as the ones at 168, because it's more even now. It's more even. I hope Lopez fights. I would love to see Lopez and Lomachenko go at it again. I think that's a fight that has to happen, in my opinion. I already said it last week. I think that Lomachenko deserves that shot. I also wouldn't mind if he has a tune-up and Lopez gets a mandatory out the way, and then fight each other again in the summer of 2021, hopefully with crowds. I think that would be, that would cement Lopez's position is undisputed, especially because he also, with the franchise belt, a lot of people don't really consider him undisputed. I feel like he can make a statement. He can do it again. He can beat him decisively. Then we'll see. Then we'll see what he's really made of. Then we'll see if he's able to make the adjustments, because that's what was missing in the first fight for me, right? Lopez's ability to make adjustments, because it was just 2 fights. That fight was, it's like 2 different 6-rounders. We have the first 6-rounder with that Lopez won 6-0 in some people's opinion, 5-1 in other people's opinion, right? And then we have the other fight from round 7 through 12, which Lomachenko won 5-1, right? So what I wanted to see, is Lopez never adjusted to Lomachenko when Lomachenko was actually throwing, right? Lomachenko started slow, but he found his rhythm, and then he did adjust, right? So in the rematch, can Lopez build on what Lomachenko did right in the 11th and take that away from him again? That's the question that remains to be seen from Lopez, in my opinion, right? I do think that this fight, and you have to commend Lopez for taking this fight, especially during a pandemic like this. You have to commend Lomachenko for taking the risk. I just would like to see it again. The next fight that I would love to see is obviously Spence Crawford. I think Spence Crawford has to happen. Everyone keeps talking about Crawford's contract with Top Rank having to run out. I hope that doesn't have to be the case. I hope that Top Rank don't shelf Crawford until his contract is over. I hope if they don't fight in the beginning of the year, or if they don't fight in 2021, I hope that Crawford still gets to stay active. I think the welterweight division is those two right now. So I'll be honestly speaking, any fight that doesn't involve those two, or any fight that isn't those two fighting each other in welterweight, to me is just I'm not particularly excited for. The only we have Virgil Ortiz and Ennis but coming up as the main prospects at 147, and that's a different story. I'm just talking about the elite right now. Then the other great 2021 fight that everyone wants to see, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. And that one I think is the easiest fight to be made of all these big fights. I think that fight is for sure going to happen. Hopefully it happens April, May, so that Joshua doesn't have to have a layoff that's too long. I think Joshua benefits from a short layoff in this fight more than Fury. I think Fury has shown that it doesn't matter how long he stays out the ring. His ability, doesn't go away. He didn't really show ring rust in any of his fights. I hope that they fight twice this year. I hope they fight soon in the year, so that if it's a close fight, they do the rematch this year as well. And that's a fight that I don't see Fury losing. I think Fury is the best out there in heavyweight, and actually by quite a little bit. I think Joshua's last performance, I mentioned before, he looked very good. You can see that he was making adjustments for the Fury fight. I think that is a fight that is closer now in terms of ability than I had it before this last fight. I think that it's for sure, it's going to be a mega event, and it's first time since Lennox Lewis, and we have an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, again from England. And then we have, I just wanted to talk about I just wanted to give a shout out as well, and a huge a thank you to boxing, to big promotional companies, not just boxing actually, but the UFC as well, for having paved the way in a year like this where we didn't know what was going to happen. I think this pandemic, it obviously set a lot of fighters, or every fighter, back. I think it hit a lot of guys in boxing very hard, because if you don't fight as a fighter, if you don't fight, you don't get paid. It's so a lot of guys didn't know if they were going to even be able to fight again, because if a guy is in his early 30s and something like this hits and there's no more fights, it might be over. It's so Dana White and the UFC did a phenomenal job bringing it back safely. They put on huge fights. They really paved the way in in showing everyone that it can be done, and that their fighters also agreeing to fight, to take risks, to fight big fights with no audience, with smaller paychecks, and that's something that it's always easier to do when someone else is already did it. It's being the first is hard, because you as a fighter, you have an ego, right? You, especially as an elite fighter, you have an ego. You've worked so hard, you've earned tiny paychecks, you've made your way up to 6, 7, 8-figure paychecks. So now, being offered a fight against a top guy for much less money than you would normally fight him, or maybe, for the same paycheck that you were getting before you were a champion. I think every fighter will look at the promoter and say, I'm not fighting this dude for this amount of money. And the UFC, they were the first, and then that gives other fighters, okay, you get a little bit more. It opens the mind to actually, to do it and to give the fans what they want. And at the end we had some huge fights. We had also Errol Spence coming back from the accident, and then we had Povetkin and Dillian Whyte go at it. We had Anthony Joshua. We had we had Lopez Lomachenko. Some great events. We saw Naoya Inoue come over here for the first time and just put on an incredible performance. So all in all, considered, it wasn't a bad year for boxing, right? And it also gave a lot of opportunities for fighters to be on TV that would never be on TV otherwise, because they were in shape and they were ready to go when other guys weren't. And a lot of guys that managed to get more than one opportunity, fight 4 or 5 times in these bubbles, make a name for themselves. And that's the beautiful thing about boxing, right? About sports in general. It's just out of nowhere comes something, out of nowhere comes an opportunity, and then there's someone ready to take it. I hope 2021, now that we have crowds back, I hope 2021 runs smoother. I hope that we get that fighters get to work from beginning to the end of the year, and that we continue to see these great fights. The first big event of the year next week, Campbell and Garcia, and this is a fight that is actually, I was thinking about that, and the fight is bigger than the fight is. It's actually pretty big, because there's a lot at stake for these guys, right? For both of them, and also the outcome of the fight has a pretty big impact on the weight division itself, because Ryan Garcia is by far the most popular rising star in the sport right now, as in popular with the people. He's not, in my opinion, talent-wise, he's not the best. I think he's received a lot of criticism from myself included, because of how much he talks. And now he has a chance, right? Beating Luke Campbell. I mean, Campbell is a world-class operator. Campbell is a great fighter. He's an Olympic gold medalist. He's come up short against top-level competition, and is by far Garcia's biggest test, right? So we have the winner of this is likely to fight Devin Haney, and consequently, the winner of that, I mean, has the #1 claim at Lopez 4 belts. I mean, at that fight with Lopez, right? So it's a pretty big fight in that sense. Also, whoever wins this is in a very competitive fight with Devin Haney, because if Campbell, obviously having the pedigree and having already, experience at the highest level, for having fought Linares and Lomachenko, Garcia is a guy who I personally think, a few weeks ago I didn't really give him much of a chance. I thought Campbell was just too good. I've been watching tape on Garcia, and I still give Campbell the edge. But if Garcia beats Campbell, he's world class. I mean, so he's gonna be, no matter who he fights, he's gonna be very competitive, and it's gonna be 50-50 in my opinion. I've been watching tape on Garcia, and I think that the interesting thing about this fight is gonna be, how is Garcia gonna cope with the guy who's his height or taller and has the range, right? Because Garcia's best shot is left hook, especially with the counter, right? Knocked out Fonseca with it, landed it on Duno several times. Very fast. Garcia has some of the fastest hands in boxing. And on the other side, you have Campbell, right, that presents the issue that he's at least just as long as Garcia. He has, but it's not just his height and the length of his arm, but it's how good he is at keeping everything at distance, right? Campbell has a very good right jab and good straight left hand, and has these long body shots that we haven't seen Garcia. We haven't seen Garcia fight a guy like that. We haven't seen Garcia fight against a guy that doesn't just come forward. We haven't seen Garcia fight a guy that doesn't give him his chin when he's throwing that right hand. Everyone was going crazy when he knocked out Duno and when he knocked out Fonseca, and those are, on paper, those are phenomenal wins, right? But if you really go back and look at the tape, these guys are tailor-made for Ryan Garcia, because Ryan Garcia's, their style fits perfectly into Ryan Garcia's shot selection, right? Starting, with the Duno fight. Duno came out extremely aggressive, and Ryan Garcia, now we have to give credit where credit is due. Ryan Garcia was very good at, at boxing on his back foot. I think Eddie Reynoso has done a great job. He had problems with Morales a few years ago. He was putting pressure on him. Garcia didn't really know. He felt at that time was overwhelmed at times. Reynoso corrected those mistakes. He was great on the back foot. He was always, he was throwing shots, walking back. He was landing shots, and he has also great shot selection. He knows when to throw his shots straight, when to throw him looping in from the side. Caught Duno with both straight right hands, looping right hands, left jabs, and left hooks. The question is, with Campbell, it's different, because Campbell, he doesn't commit like that. He doesn't go in like that. So Garcia isn't going to have that left hook to just throw, right? Also, you have to remember that Campbell is a southpaw. So Campbell, with his jab, can also neglect Garcia's left hook. So it's going to be, I believe, the fight is going to start off slow. I think Campbell needs to start the fight slow. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, they've gone back and forth a lot, and it's also, I think they both have to prove something, because Campbell has never beaten an elite level guy, and I think if Campbell loses on Saturday night, he will never be a world champion. I think this is Campbell's last shot at a belt at 135, because after Garcia, it's not like these guys, it's not like these guys are on a lower level than Garcia, and it's not like they're old. Campbell is the older guy. The 4 belts at 135 are held by guys that are under 25 years old. So these are all guys that are coming in. Lopez is going to be better than he is now 2 years from now. Haney is going to be better than he is now. Campbell is already, I believe, 30, 31, 32 years old. So he is already, he's still in his prime, but he's in a year or so he's going to start exit his prime. So this is his last shot at a world title, at a big fight, and he has to be wary of Garcia's hand speed. He has to be wary of Garcia's power. We've seen him knock out guys in the first round. He's whipping. He whips these shots out fast, crisp, short, and in the first round it's easy to get caught. So I want to see Campbell using his jab. I want to see Campbell keeping his right hand, his right glove always, really tucked to his face, and which he will. He has phenomenal fundamentals. He's Olympic gold medalist. So I see Campbell coming out with his jab, trying to establish distance, and it's going to be interesting for me to see how Garcia reacts to that. Is he going to try to start fast like he did in the last few fights, where he's immediately looking for that hook? Is he gonna fall short with his left hook? Is he gonna set it up, or is he gonna try to throw it from too far out? I think Garcia also needs to. It's gonna also benefit Garcia to start off a bit slower, and he needs to figure out the range of the Campbell jab and the timing, so he throws the hook over Campbell's jab. I think Campbell he doesn't get caught lunging. He doesn't lunge much. He's very good at coming in and out of range with that jab, right? And he's very good at keeping that distance. So Garcia has to basically, he's going to be the one for the first time who has to cut distance down. He has to actually work to get inside, right? That's something we've never seen him do. Now, if Garcia does manage to do that, I think that he might stop Campbell, because I think that Campbell gets hit with left hooks. We saw Linares hit him with left hooks repeatedly. Linares also fast hands. I don't think Linares quite the speed of Garcia. So if Garcia does manage to cut that distance, he's gonna land that left hook a lot. I think Campbell needs to feint a lot and jab off the feint, and I think Campbell needs to use his lateral movement a lot. He goes very nicely to the body. We'll see how Garcia reacts to that. On the other side, Garcia doesn't go to the body really at all, right? So that's what makes this fight so hard to predict for me. Is physically they're very similar. Garcia has the edge in power and in speed and in youth, obviously, but Campbell has a huge edge in experience, both as an amateur and a professional, and he has the style to keep Garcia off and to beat Garcia. He doesn't have much power. Campbell is not a big puncher, so Campbell will if Campbell wins this fight, it's gonna go 12 rounds. And Campbell has the conditioning to go 12 rounds, right? We saw it against Linares. Same with Lomachenko. Vicious body attack. Linares as well, going to the body. Campbell managed to stay, he stayed up. He gave, Linares a hell of a fight. So, it's gonna be good to see Garcia, because if he wins this again, if he beats Campbell, then he's the real deal. If he beats Luke Campbell, then you know he has the goods, then he has what it takes, because he's not just a guy with a fast left hook and a massive Instagram following, but then all of a sudden he has the ability to actually land that and to set that shot up, because he will have to set it up. Campbell is very reactive. He himself uses feints a lot. He himself reacts to feints a lot. So Garcia is going to really have to work to land that shot. He's going to work to have to land, the left, the straight right hand, that looping right hand. Those are all punches that this time the opponent's head is higher and further away than it ever was before, right? So you can't just stick your left hand out like he did against Duda and then just whip the right hand over the top, or you can't just, see a guy lunging in with the right hand and just throw that short left hook like he did with Fonseca, because again, if you really dissect those victories, that's what happened. Fonseca, everyone was crazy about him because he knocked him out in a round when it took Davis 8. First of all, Davis was fat and out of shape when he fought Fonseca. But second of all, styles make fights, and Davis didn't have the height on Fonseca, so Davis still had to work, right? Garcia didn't. Garcia, the right hand came, and he timed it well the first time, didn't land it properly, and then Fonseca threw the exact same right hand again, and then he landed it. It wasn't. So it was credit to Garcia for picking up the timing so quickly. It shows that he has the talent, he has the eyes to do it. But we have to recognize that it was tailor-made for him. This is now, it's not the guys at the top, right? Devin Haney isn't going to get hit with a left hook like that. He's not going to come out like that for the first round. Luke Campbell, I hope, doesn't come out like that for the first round, right? Teofimo Lopez, we saw against Lomachenko. Lopez, we all thought Lopez was a kid who just had power, but no, he has poise. He was able to, he knew when to engage with Lomachenko and when not. He was very calm, very composed. The moment wasn't too big for him. So these guys are these phenomenal talents. Same coming down up at 130, Shakur Stevenson, Chris Colbert. These are guys that they look way more experienced than 20, 21, 22, 23-year-olds would normally look. They don't just have the physical skills, but they also have just that mental calmness. Now they have that, they look seasoned, right? So this is a great test for this is the perfect step up for Garcia to get into that, right? If he gets past Campbell, then he can beat anyone. I still favor the other 2, 3 if you count Davis in. I still favor them over Garcia, but if he beats Campbell, those are close fights. I personally think Campbell is going to win a decision. I believe he's going to out jab Garcia, and I think he's going to stick and move. I hope that Garcia makes it. I hope that Garcia reacts the right way to that. I hope that off that jab and moving that I believe Campbell is going to do, I hope that Garcia comes forward a little bit, and I hope to see. I hope he doesn't get frustrated by it. I hope he doesn't get frustrated when things don't go his way, but that he actually listens to Reynoso, because Reynoso is also he's become a phenomenal coach himself. So I think that he's gonna give him a lot. He's gonna help him make adjustments along the way that are gonna They're going to be good, and I think Garcia is going to be, for as long as the fight lasts, Garcia is going to be very competitive. If he's losing, if he's on top, I don't see Campbell. For some reason, I don't see this fight being a back and forth fight like Campbell Linares was. I see this fight being going in either one direction or the other. I feel that either Campbell just wins a points decision that is, you know, kind of like decently wide, or I see Garcia stopping Campbell late or winning a decision equally wide than the other way around, because of the mental factor in this fight. I think they both have a lot to prove. Like I said again, Campbell, I don't think if he loses his fight, it's over for him. I mean, he's still gonna fight, but he's not gonna win a title. And if Garcia loses his fight, you know, he's talked a lot of shit. I mean, he's talked a lot of smack. So if he loses, then, you know, that comes with, you know, a bigger downfall. I mean, we saw Deontay Wilder, right, this year. I mean, if there's any person in the world or any athlete in the world that would love to just wake up January 1st and this whole year have been a dream, it's Deontay Wilder, right? I mean, he got beaten the shit out of him by Tyson Fury, and then came up with a bunch of crazy conspiracies. Instead of just taking the win, came up with a bunch of crazy conspiracy theories to excuse why he lost. And this is how crazy the world is. Most people, well, not most people thought he was a lunatic, but there's a decent amount of people that actually believed him, right? So, in my opinion, that happened. I mean, Deontay Wilder fans and Deontay Wilder, the reason why he came up with all this is because of all the smack he talked before. He was beaten up so badly after talking all that shit that he couldn't just accept to be beaten. There had to be a reason, right? That's what comes with talking too much and then losing. So I hope that, I mean, he is an extreme case. I personally had never seen anything like that before, but I personally would like to see Ryan Garcia win or lose. I think he's very young. I think this is a great fight for him. I think he's actually, you know, I very rarely do this, but I commend De La Hoya for giving him this fight before getting a world title, because that's something that, you know, the other guys didn't get. Haney didn't have that high level. I mean, Campbell is better than any opponent that Haney has fought so far in his career, right? Campbell, outside of Lomachenko, I mean, and Comey, is also the best guy that Teofimo fought, right? But Lopez, I mean, the fight with Comey to me is you can't really count it, because that was very quick. It was also, it's not like Lopez beat Comey to a pulp and knocked him out. It was a very cagey fight, and then they both threw a right hand. Lopez landed first, and he got the win, right? Because of the sheer power that he has, right? Now, obviously, he wins. It's a legitimate win, fair and square. But that win didn't tell me, he's ready for the top of the top. Garcia beating Campbell, I don't see Garcia. If Garcia beats Campbell, it's not going to be a fluke. It's not going to be, you know, he's not going to catch him with a lucky left hook and knock him out. They're not going to trade shots at the same time, and then his is going to land first. This is a hard fight. This is a fight where you have a very experienced Olympic medalist who has been there with top competition already against an up-and-coming, physically super gifted and talented young guy, right? The question is, does Garcia have the skill to overcome the style that Campbell presents, right? Does he have the grit to dig deep if the fight goes into deep waters and he's not feeling it? Does he have what it takes to figure it out and get the win anyway, right? I think this fight is going to show all of those things, right? And even if he loses, I mean, he's 22. It's going to be a great learning experience. Easy to bounce. I mean, it should be easy to bounce back from, in the sense that, you know, there's not a lot of guys that present that problem at 135, right? Devin Haney is also, he's rangy, he's tall, but he's not tall like Luke Campbell, and he's not, you know, he himself hasn't fought anyone of that caliber. So losing to Luke Campbell doesn't set him back much. I think it's the mental aspect here that's going to be tested for Garcia in case he loses. But I really want to see the winner on Saturday fight Devin Haney. And I rate Devin Haney very highly amongst the 135 pounders. I think Devin Haney, in my opinion, is the most talented of all these young 135 guys, being Lopez, Haney and Garcia. I don't include Stevenson and Colbert because they're 130, but I think style-wise, Devin Haney is the most, you know, it's the hardest style to go against. You know, fast, rangy, great defense, good head movement. So I think that the winner of this should fight Haney, and then the winner of that would make a phenomenal fight with Lopez, right? Hopefully Lomachenko gets a shot in the mix too there. And yeah, that's this Saturday. I also, before I go, last fight I'm really excited for. Well, last couple of things I'm really excited for in 2021. Chocolatito against Estrada, the rematch. Phenomenal fight. So happy I got made. And I am very, very, very excited to see Usyk at heavyweight. They've been talking about him fighting Joe Joyce. I think that's a great fight. I mean, Usyk already beat Joyce and the WSB, but I believe that on a 12-rounder, I think that's the fight that Usyk needs, because Joe Joyce has the frame of a true heavyweight. Chisora was a very entertaining fight, and it showed that Usyk truly had the grit in him, you know, just to be roughed up and to just come back and do his thing. People think that Usyk, because of that performance, people think Usyk doesn't stand a chance against the top heavyweights. But the truth is, none of the top heavyweights presents the problem that Chisora brings. None of these top heavyweights. The only other top heavyweight, or former top heavyweight, that presents similar issues is Jarrell Miller, right? Weighing, I think, close to 300 pounds and throwing 80 punches around, right? But stylistically, Usyk is perfect for these heavyweights because he's quicker. He has, I mean, skill-wise, for me, he's better than all of them except Fury. And he has that ability to get in. You know, if by fighting Joyce, he has someone that has a frame who's Jojo is a bit on the slower side. He's not quite as quick and as explosive as Anthony Joshua is, but this is a test that I think, you know, I also don't think Usyk can knock out Joyce. So I feel like that is what gets him ready for the big ones. I think that truly is the fight that gets him ready for the big boys. I also don't think that's going to be a hard fight to make. I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to see next. If he, you know, unless he gets, you know, really stuck on fighting Anthony Joshua next, because he is the mandatory. And Eddie Hearn also said that, you know, they want Fury Joshua to be for all the belts. That fight they don't They don't want to make that fight unless it is for the belt. So, and Usyk is the mandatory for that WBO belt. I think that'd be unwise on Usyk's behalf. I think he needs another fight at heavyweight against a guy who is, who presents a similar issue than Joshua, right? Which is a long jab, a hard right hand. Joshua's obviously a lot better than Joyce. But I think he's a great preparation fight for Usyk. I wish to see that next. And yeah, 2021. I hope we don't have another crazy lockdown. I hope we get to enjoy. We get to see our families. I hope we get to travel again. I hope we get some crowds in the arena again. I think, we saw. I mean, it makes such a difference, right? Only 1,000 people in the Joshua Pulev fight, and it was, the atmosphere. You didn't realize the difference it makes until you see it again. Same 12,000 people in the Spence Garcia fight. I'm sure atmosphere is going to be crazy for the Ryan Garcia fight next week, and I can't wait. I hope. I hope we get to see that. And yeah, I hope everyone has a happy new year. That was it. I'll be back next Monday to speak about the Garcia and Campbell fight. Hope you guys have a great week. Happy New Year.